Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Crossing the Line. We have a very special episode for you guys today. We have had to make some changes to the host lineup as one of our hosts came down with a cold, so he is not here at the moment. But we managed to bring somebody special on for today. Some of you may know who he is, as he was one of the original hosts of this show long before Josh and myself. Allow me to introduce a very special guest, Brian Kilman. I am Jerry Peralta along with Matt Intrican. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic, Jerry.
It's great to be back, Jerry. This show is where I started from, and it's great to be back.
Yeah, and we know you got hired by the Astros thanks to your failed Marys, but unfortunately you are no longer with them. You want to explain that?
The Astros looked at the failed Marys and said, this looks like somebody who can bring this team to World Series. And obviously the Astros are going to make the World Series this year. So they said they need to get rid of one of the guys who did fail Mary. Unfortunately, it was me. Sergio got to stick with the team.
It's as if the Astros were missing that one special thing that separated them from getting the World Series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. And I unfortunately had nothing to do with the bashing of those trash cans or anything like that. And
good to know you've been an honorable employee.
And after all, looking back, if they couldn't make this World Series without cheating, I don't want to be with that organization.
I respect it.
Same here, and it looks like you drew the short straw, but we have a jam-packed show today, so let's just jump right into our first topic. News coming out recently that Russell Westbrook and James Harden no longer want to play with each other at the Houston Rockets. So the big thing is Houston has a decision to make. Do you trade Russell Westbrook for the small amount that you might get for him, or do you trade James Harden? My question to you, Brian, since you are a special guest, we will start with you. Should the Rockets keep James Harden, or should they trade him? And if so, who is the team that you think might pick him up?
Houston, we have a problem. And we've all seen that the Rockets' small ball experiment has failed. And when they let go of Clint Capella, he went to the Hawks, they said, we're going to focus on Russell Westbrook and James Harden and this small ball team, and we're going to go farther with this team. But they didn't go any farther. They went last year. Mike D'Antonio left the team. And when it comes down to it, Russell Westbrook wants out of this Rockets team. And James Harden said he's willing to stick with the team. So I think you got to get rid of Russell Westbrook. He doesn't have as big a contract as James Harden. But the way you look at it is the Rockets don't have that many draft picks coming up. They don't have a first-round draft pick this year. They have a first-round draft pick in 2022 and 2023. But they don't control the draft picks 2024, 2024, 25, or 2026. So I think when you look at it, James Harden has to stay on the team. If you trade James Harden, you're getting rid of all of your weapons. Russell Westbrook wants out, and if James Harden is gone, you have nothing left on the team. You might trade some new players in from the 76ers if you're trying to get Joel Embiid from the Sixers, among other players. You might have that team, but we've seen that Embiid on the Sixers cannot make the team by himself. So you'd have to have a combination of Embiid. Even with Ben Simmons, he couldn't make the team by himself. So get rid of Russell Westbrook. He's not the guy for the team. And James Harden, I think you have to stick around, and he's the guy you have to build the organization around.
All right, Brian, I hear you, and I agree with you that the Rockets should trade Russell Westbrook, but here's where you're wrong, and that they need to let go of James Harden. And here's why. It's because we're in an era in the NBA right now where there are so many teams that are getting better, and all we see from the Houston Rockets is that they're getting worse. And then we can especially see that after a second-round exit in the playoffs. Okay, and when you're an NBA team, you got to look at the centerpiece of your franchise and ask yourself, is this centerpiece, a.k.a. James Harden, the guy that can lead us to a title? And there is nothing that compels me to believe that James Harden can be that guy for the Houston Rockets. For a multitude of reasons. Yes, he can score points. He averages 30 points a game consistently throughout the NBA season. But is he the type of guy that people want to play with? Is he the type of guy that people want to play with and be a part of? Okay, no, he's not. We've seen that with his treatment of Dwight Howard. We saw that with his treatment of CP3. And now we're seeing that treatment with Russell Westbrook and the deterioration of that relationship. He reminds me of Michael Jordan in the late 80s, a guy who, hey, stick with me. Michael Jordan in the late 80s was a guy who thought he could do it all himself, and he did not trust, nor did he believe or know how to use his teammates, Brian. And James Harden is just not the type of guy that can lead his team to a title. We see it every single year. The Houston Rockets are not getting it done. And yes, James Harden is a great player, but he's not great enough.
Well, here's the way I look at it. I might agree that James Harden's not the guy you want on your team. He's not the best to his teammates. Austin Rivers came out recently and said that when James Harden missed a free throw, James Harden missed a free throw, and he yelled at Austin Rivers because he was moving on the bench when he shot the free throw, and that disturbed him. But the fact of it is, James Harden and Russell Westbrook wanted Ty Lue as the coach, and that's not going to happen. And whether or not James Harden is the future of the organization, you're not going to get your money's worth if you trade him right now before the season, or even during the trade deadline during the season. And you might have to stick out with James Harden another couple of years and try to get some picks in 2022, 2023 to fill around James Harden, even if the players in the organization right now don't like playing with James Harden.
Okay, Ed, we got to kind of wrap this one up, but I'm going to leave with this one. I'm with Brian that the Rockets need to just kind of stick with James Harden. I mean, they've gotten relatively far in the playoffs with James Harden.
Toxic personality.
Very toxic, but I mean, it doesn't matter. If you go far in the playoffs, your personality can be as toxic as it wants. He's made it to several conference finals. They've only fallen short several times before the finals. But if the Rockets do decide they need to trade James Harden, they are going to milk him for everything he is worth. They are going to try and get players, draft picks. They are going to make sure that they get their money's worth out of that guy. Sticking with the NBA, the 2020 to 2021 season has officially been announced. We have a start date. I want to say it's December 20th, somewhere around there. And now this past season, it was a crazy season. It was weird because of COVID. The NBA had to go into a bubble system, and ultimately the Lakers held on to win a championship. And they are looking really good. Going into the next season, the big question here, and I'm going to give this one to you, Matt, is there a team, which team next season is most likely going to be the team that can dethrone the Lakers?
Well, here it is, Jerry. For me, it's got to be none other than the Golden State Warriors. Why? It's because you are returning the same core that went 73-9 in 2015-2016. That is Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green. You are returning the team who is arguably one of the greatest teams in the history of the NBA. Okay? And not only that, but you are replacing a Harrison Barnes with an even better shooting guard in Andrew Wiggins. And not only that, but you still have the number 2 overall pick in the NBA draft, which you can easily use to fill one of your biggest needs in the center and draft my guy James Wiseman. Okay? And that is why you could say the Denver Nuggets are going to be the biggest contender. You could say that the Minnesota Timberwolves or the LA Clippers. Sorry, not the Minnesota Timberwolves. I misspoke there. LA Clippers are going to be the biggest contenders. But we just haven't seen the evidence, especially from a team like the Denver Nuggets, okay? And we have seen the evidence from the Golden State Warriors, and we are just getting ready to return it, Brian. That's why it's going to be the Golden State Warriors.
Well, here's the way I look at it. The Golden State Warriors beat LeBron and the Cavs without KD the season before KD came to the Warriors. But that was with LeBron and the Cavs. And LeBron and the Lakers are much better than LeBron was with the Cavs. The Cavs had nothing without LeBron. And after LeBron left, the Cavs were one of the worst teams in the league, and they continue to be that. So my pick of the ones you addressed, outside of the ones you addressed, goes along with KD. The Brooklyn Nets, I think, will be a big contender in the East and a contender to play against the Lakers in the NBA Finals. If Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are healthy, they are two of the best players in the NBA. KD is arguably the second best player in the NBA behind LeBron. And Karis LeVert, 18.7 points per game and 1.8 steals per game. Last season, without KD, Kyrie was injured most of the season. Dinwiddie had 20.6 points per game, even without KD. There's pieces that'll fill in. DeAndre Jordan and Jared Allen all had over 9.5 rebounds per game. There's players on this team that can fill in, and I just don't think the Golden State Warriors, without Kevin Durant, can beat a team like the Lakers with LeBron James and with Anthony Davis.
Here's what I'll say about the Brooklyn Nets, and it's the same thing I'm going to say about the Denver Nuggets, is that there's just not evidence. That's all speculation. It's all predictions. You have no idea how well the Brooklyn Nets are going to work together. Basketball is all about chemistry. You only got 5 players playing on the floor. You need to be able to work with your team, and you need to be able to know your team. And you just don't know that you know your team if you're the Brooklyn Nets until you actually play the game. We already know that the Golden State Warriors have one of the best bonds in the NBA. We know that. There's no way you can say that they're going to be a better contender. I know that things have changed. People have been injured. But I just don't see you going against Golden State Warriors here.
Well, the thing right now, too, is there's going to be a lot of free agency coming up. Anthony Davis, from what I read, he declined his player option, probably looking for that long-term deal. So it's very possible Anthony Davis goes to a different team. I doubt it. Russell Westbrook, too, a lot of analysts are kind of saying that he may end up in Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie Irving. So that kind of chemistry, or that kind of talent right there in Brooklyn could very well be the team that could upset the Lakers. Switching gears here, the MLB has just given out all their end of the year awards. Nolan Arenado won his 8th straight Golden Glove and won his 5th straight Platinum Glove. I want to say 5th. I'm not. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But there was one award that has drawn some questions. Brian, I'm going to give this one to you. Did Kevin Cash deserve to win Manager of the Year award?
I'm going to tell you this, Jerry. Absolutely. 40-20 on the season. Best winning percentage that the Rays have ever had in their history. And here's what makes him the best manager is he made great players out of just good players. Before the season, you never heard of Randy Rosarina, Manuel Margot. Willie Adames was a fringe player at best, and they both showed up, especially a Rosarina in the playoffs. And they won the AL East against a stacked Yankees team. They went 8-2 against the Yankees in the regular season, a Yankees team that has Aaron Judge, DJ LeMahieu, Giancarlo Stanton, all these players, and the salary cap that the Yankees have. And this Tampa Bay Rays team went 8-2 against them. I don't think there's an argument against this Rays team, especially after they made the World Series, that Kevin Cash is not the manager of the year in the AL.
Yeah, as unfortunate as it is, I do agree with you, though, Brian. Kevin Cash definitely deserved to win Manager of the Year, and it's just simply because he was the best manager in the American League. You had the best record in the American League, and not only that, but you led one of the best pitching staffs in the whole Major League Baseball, okay? And I know you can point to the Game 6 decision to take out Snell. In hindsight's 2020, obviously, probably would have been a better idea to go against that. But you cannot judge a man from that one decision. You cannot take away a whole person's notoriety from that one decision, because he built up a whole season, a whole team built from that one decision. And the biggest thing here is that that decision was built from a already acquired set of data that made that decision appear to be the right thing to do. And if that reliever had been playing better the only thing that made that decision as wrong as it was that, his name slipped on my mind, but the guy that did relieve Snell, he had been horrendous in the playoffs up to that point. Had he been playing better, that would have been the right idea, because Blake Snell had not pitched past the 6th inning, not only that whole season, but not since June of 2019, so a whole year and a half since he pitched out of the 6th inning. Kevin Cash saw he gave up a leadoff single, and he said, okay, should I let the wheels come off before and leave him in before it's too late, or should I take him out now and go to the guy who's arguably one of the best relievers in baseball? Kevin Cash made a baseball decision. He did what he thought was right.
And here's what I'll say. I think it's unfair to judge Kevin Cash by that one 6th inning decision. It's Game 6 of the World Series. It's a need-to-win game against the Dodgers. And Blake Snell, while I agree, I think should have kept Blake Snell in the game. I think it's unfair to judge him based on that decision. Kevin Cash, throughout the whole season, was very good and would win close games at that. And it's tough to judge it on that. The reliever that was brought in that game was not doing very good in the postseason. But Kevin Cash made his decision as he did. And it's tough to say that another manager in the AL should have done better. Rocco Baldelli from the Twins had a great regular season again, but couldn't win a postseason game. He's out. He's absolutely out. Rick Renteria had a good season for the White Sox. I didn't expect the White Sox to finish 35-25. And they had some guys show up, but they didn't win the AL Central, while the Rays did win the AL East. And the White Sox didn't have a bunch of flash names, but Giolito and Dallas Keuchel will keep you around in any game or season that you play.
I mean, that's fair. Both really good point there, Brian. And I mean, yeah, the call was, you can say it was questionable, but going back to what Matt said, it was the call he felt was right at the time. Now, onto a serious topic, guys. We talk a lot of football on this show, and we always ask the tough questions. But now I bring to you what is arguably the toughest question I have ever had to ask on this show. If you guys were dating an NFL player, what position would you want him to play? Matt?
Great question, Jerry. Great question. For me, if I was dating an NFL player, for me, it would either be a backup quarterback or a defensive back. Here's why. Backup quarterback, you got the intangibles. A guy who's going to be a good leader. He's probably a good role model. And you're going to be living a pretty comfortable life. I point to a lot of the guys who have made careers out of being backup quarterbacks, notably the man Chase Daniels, who is the Bears back. I don't even remember who he's the backup QB, but I saw online, I was reading an article, and apparently he, over his 12-year NFL career, he has made $37 million for just 5 starts. That is a pretty good playtime to pay ratio. And also, did you know that Matt Schaub is still in the league? He's in like his 13th year.
I did not know that.
He's the backup quarterback for Matt Ryan. But anyway, yes. So backup quarterback. I don't know how you can disagree with that one. I mean, because obviously you still have notoriety, but not a lot of notoriety. You can still go out into public and not get noticed, and not have your nights out be ruined by a lot of autograph seekers and stuff like that. So, and defensive back, because I think they're good leaders. Not too big, not too skinny. You you mess with some of the wide receivers, cornerbacks, they're a little bit too cocky, you know what I'm saying? To be a little self-involved. If I'm a woman, I want to know that I'm the center of your life. And you know what? That's just how I feel. What do you think, Brian?
You know, I could understand both those arguments. You look at Gilbert this past weekend, and who would have known he was a backup quarterback in the NFL for 5 years now, between teams, but now he got to start for the Cowboys, and nobody would have known that, and he's making a bunch of money.
Not me.
But for my money, I got to go with long snapper in the NFL, because 0 people recognize an NFL long snapper. If you're a really committed fan, you might recognize a defensive back, or you might recognize a backup quarterback, but does anyone know the long snapper for the team? This man is making $500,000, maybe $1 million a year to snap the ball to the punter, play 8-10 snaps a game, and he's making good money. He's not getting hit, won't have head injuries, probably finish a university degree because nobody drafts a long snapper after the 3rd year. And when it comes down to it, if you dated a guy who makes $10 million over his NFL career and is smart with investments, you might have a pretty good life. I think long snapper is the way to go.
But see, Brian, here's the fatal flaw with that. You tell your friends, ooh, I'm dating an NFL player. They get all excited. Their eyes pop out. And they'll be like, well, who is it? And you're like, oh, well, it's Joe McGovern Smith. And they're like, oh. And get all disappointed. You don't want to disappoint your friends,
Well,
do you?
who are they dating? Who are they dating? Some financial, investment expert
I guess,
from
but
TIAA.
can't really
or,
brag about dating a long snapper.
You date an NFL player. You say I'm dating an NFL
I
player,
guess.
and
And that's gonna be
I can't
big, though.
disclose any, further details, and they know the difference.
Okay, I mean, okay, good selections, but I think my pick may be almost as good, if not a little better than your guys's. I would say the kicker. He still gets paid like at least a few $1 million every once in a while,
What?
and you would never have to worry about too many devastating injuries that would alter your life. Plus, they would bring home some big paychecks. The only time you would have to be concerned for your well-being is if they're in the playoffs and he misses a key kick. But that's why you got to date a kicker for a bad team. You can't date a kicker from a good team.
High risk, high reward, Jerry.
Exactly.
It's tough to be a kicker. If you miss 3 kicks in one game, you're off the team unless you're a veteran.
If you're a woman, you don't need that type of volatility in your life.
Unless
okay?
you're
They're also just not great physique. There's a lot of other great NFL players
you
you
want
can
a
pick from with way
short
better
guy,
physique.
Who cares about
a
physique?
5'9" guy,
Yeah.
an NFL player. Oh,
With kind of flabby arms.
My boyfriend's an NFL player, and you're taller than him. Is that what you're looking for?
So what? Who cares?
It matters.
I am shorter than everybody
No woman
here
wants to
right
date
now.
a guy shorter than them. No woman wants to date a guy
No
shorter
woman.
than them.
It's fine. You find the right people for it. Moving on, because we're gonna probably sit here arguing about this all day. Time for shout-outs. Now, Brian, unfortunately, we couldn't get your shout-out put together in time, but Matt, why don't you start us off with your shout-out?
All right, so my shout-out goes out to the man who has just been made a myth and a legend, John Ram, for his miraculous hole-in-one at the Masters. I mean, the man turned his golf ball into that little frog amphibian-type creature that skips over, that can run on water. I don't remember what it's called, but John Ram just did that with a golf ball. So that's got to be my shout-out for the day.
Going to my shout-out for today, and we'll end our shout-outs on Brian since special guest. My shout-out goes to the Miami Dolphins for upsetting not one, but 2 different NFC West teams, the Arizona Cardinals and the LA Rams. Defense is really coming together, and I thank the Dolphins for keeping Seattle in that #1 place for at least another week. Brian, how about you?
For my shout-out, I got to go for the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Trebek. On Sunday, unfortunately passed away from cancer after living 80 years, and he hosted everyone's favorite show on television for 36 years, Jeopardy. And he was more than a host. He came into our lives every weeknight, and you watch Jeopardy, and he was a calming presence. He was funny. He was knowledgeable, and he was just a great guy to watch throughout the years. And he wasn't just for smart people. He was for everyone. Topics ranged from college football to 18th century literature, and it was for everyone. And my dream as a kid was to be on Jeopardy. I wanted to talk to Alex Trebek, and it was going to be phenomenal. And he was just a down-to-earth guy. And people that have been on the show have said he's supposed to be the star, but he treats you like he's the star, like you're the star. And I'm sure it's great to interact with Alex Trebek. And there will be a new host on Jeopardy. But I have to imagine whenever this new person comes on, there will be an Alex Trebek-shaped hole on that Jeopardy stage.
That was beautiful, man.
Very beautiful. I'm going to have to go home and pour out a beer for Alex Trebek here. That's going to do it for us on Crossing the Line today. That's going to do it for us here in the studio for the semester. We are going to be, campus is going to be moving to online classes, so we will not be able to bring you another episode next week. It's kind of nice that we got to end the semester with a special episode and a reunion episode with Brian Kilman. And with that, we will see you guys all next year for another great edition of Crossing the Line.